Hey everybody, so I'm going to do something that I've never done on this channel and talk about airline stocks. There's a first time for everything. So Lou Whiteman is joining me. He knows a lot more about the airline industry from an investment standpoint anyway than I do. I fly a lot, but I don't know them very well as investing. So before we dive in, please take a minute and check out the link you see on your screen, fool.com/Frankel. Get the top 10 stocks to buy from my sponsor, The Motley Fool. It's the best way to support this work we're doing on YouTube. Again, that link is fool.com/Frankel. So, Lou, before we dive in, quick, like in 30 seconds or so, where are we with the airline industry? What's going on these days?
So as I think anybody who has been alive the last few years knows, it's been a crazy time. If you go back, pre-COVID, and then what happened with COVID, with the industry, basically, if you're not traveling, that's very bad. And then this pent-up boom that happened afterwards, with just, I don't know, I'm Matt, I'm sure you've flown the last few years. It is hard to find a seat at the airport. Forget a seat on the plane. Now we are sort of, this has always been a very cyclical industry, a cruel cyclical industry. The history would suggest that with interest rates up, inflation up, questions about the economy, that's when you see weakness. It's held up a lot stronger than one would have expected so far, but we are finally now seeing cracks in the armor and real questions about where we go from here. So it's kind of a really interesting time to be looking at this sector.
I agree. And one thing I was really surprised about when I started doing research for this was how well the so-called legacy airlines seem to be doing right now. It wasn't that long ago that Warren Buffett sold off all his airline stocks and said he made a mistake. And Buffett has specifically referred to airlines as a business not to invest in. But when I looked at specifically Delta, that's one that really stood out to me as one that's interesting. DAL is the ticker. Um, a couple things I didn't realize about them. One, I didn't realize how much money they make from their credit card partnerships. It's a airlines are get a bad rap because they are a very capital intensive business. It costs a lot to fly a plane, and if you're paying $300 a seat, 200 seats on a plane, the airline might be making like a 5% margin on that if they're lucky, and that's the
Right.
business working well. Um, but in 2023, Delta got $6.8 billion with a B from Amex for its credit card relationships. And as it continues to add more features to its cards, it just upgraded all of its Amex cards, expects to grow this to $10 billion a year from just Amex revenue in the intermediate term. They focus on the premium traveler, which is a very good thing when middle class consumers are pulling back on spending, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, in a little bit. Um, $2 billion of free cash flow last year. Delta trades for 6.5 times forward earnings estimates. It does pay a little bit of a dividend. I was actually shocked. If you had asked me just to ballpark without any knowledge what Delta's market cap was, I would have said about $100 billion.
No.
It's a $28 billion company for
Yeah.
being the leader in its industry. Essentially, it's about 20% below its high, but I was shocked at how cheap it is. What am I missing?
So I love that you pointed out the loyalty program, because and this has been sort of a secret in plain sight for this industry for a long time. Going back, I probably shouldn't say the company, but back to after 9/11, I was involved in a restructuring of in my prior life of an airline, and one of the options on the table was to spin out the loyalty program as like selling it to private equity. That's how valuable of an asset that was. And I believe Air Canada basically did that. So yeah, that's there. But as far as what's going on with the legacies is you have to go back all the way to 2008. And it was Delta Airlines, the first that did this bankruptcy and consolidation. And for olds like us, you remember Delta merged with Northwest, United and Continental, and then American and US Air. And as part of that was just to streamline, get some of these extra seats out of the business, but also just an upgrade in intelligence. The management teams at this legacy, for the first time since late 70s deregulation, have figured out that it's not just about being the biggest, it's about making money. Delta, I love you mentioned Delta, because Delta has become both, the shining example of what to do and the playbook that everyone has followed with it. Look, all of these things that we as consumers hate, the paying for leg room in economy, differentiating the class, the really advanced algorithms that sell seats now, and really getting the most dollars for these seats. This is just a much smarter industry than it was even a decade a decade and a half ago, it's still a really tough industry for all the reasons you said. You want high paid employees flying a plane, yes. You don't want to have you want this to be skilled, high paid positions. It's still a very difficult industry, but it is so much smarter and so much focused on making money now than it was 20 years ago. It's hard to recognize some of these companies.
So I wanted to actually mention a different airline that if you rewind the clock back like 10 years ago, when we're, a few years out of the financial crisis, airlines are generally thought of as a terrible business. The one that everybody said, this one is different, was Southwest Airlines, ticker symbol LUV. So there was a rumor for a while that Warren Buffett was going to buy the whole airline because it was such a great business. It had a very, very loyal group of travelers. People who fly Southwest generally love Southwest and don't want to fly anything else. I don't get it. I'm an American Airlines flyer myself. I fly Delta on occasion. Um, I like being able to choose my seat. I like being able to do stuff that Southwest doesn't let you do. I like the loyalty programs because I'm a frequent flyer. Um, but Southwest, I looked at the stock price. It's down over 50% from its 2021 high, not even like pre-pandemic level. Um, what happened?
Yeah. I think it's about half of where it was pre-COVID too. So yeah,
Yeah.
even go back to, so it's sort of the same answer that I just gave. Part of it, and I think we only realize this in hindsight, is part of Southwest's advantage all these years was, and I'm being a little over the top here, Matt, but imagine being a business where you're the only intelligent person in the room, right? And Southwest was a rational player in an irrational industry for a long time. The legacies never adjusted to deregulation. They never adjusted to this world where, or it took them way too long to adjust to this world where basically your margin was guaranteed to you have to fight for it. And Southwest, with I hate the expression low hanging fruit. It always looks low hanging in hindsight, but Southwest for the better part of two and a half decades just feasted off of the low hanging fruit that was the rest of the people in my business just aren't really smart. So that has changed, and that has changed to their detriment. Where regression to the mean. The other thing that's going on, this is a Southwest story. A lot of the reason why Delta and United have done so well is you talked about loyalty. We talked about Economy Plus. We talked about even bag fees, things like that. Southwest is we're what we do and we do nothing else. And we talk about culture, we talk about great culture and ingrained culture and all the ways that that can be great for a business. But when times change and everyone in the management suite has been there since 1990 or so, it's really hard to adjust with the times. Southwest, they don't invest in technology. We found that out the hard way with that holiday meltdown a couple of winters ago. They can't add a lot of this ancillary revenue, the fees, even if they wanted to, because their systems won't allow it. They're in a weird position where they were kind of the most nimble player in the industry 20 years ago to now they're the only ones unable to make moves to keep up with their peers. This is still a powerful franchise. It is the largest domestic carrier by number of seats. But Southwest is just in a real rock and a hard place where doing it their way, the strategy that worked for so long, it just doesn't work as well anymore. And I don't know if there's anyone in the room there who really knows how to implement any other strategy.
I have to believe that some of it is, and this goes with the loyalty program, is the kind of the focus on the premium customer. Um, in the current economic environment, and we're seeing this throughout the industry. We're recording another video on Starbucks, for example, and Starbucks reported an unexpected slowdown in consumer spending in the first quarter because customers are starting to pump the brakes on what they consider discretionary spending. So business travelers are still spending money because that's not discretionary. They have to get from point A to point B for meetings. They have to fly around the world to see clients and things like that. Southwest does not specialize in business travel. They specialize in people going on vacation. They're one of the few airlines that goes to Asheville, North Carolina, I believe, is or a few of the kind of vacation destinations that I are reasons that I wish Southwest served my airport so I could get there a lot easier. But the point is that they focus on discretionary travel a lot more than some of the bigger airlines do, and I have to feel like that's playing into this a little bit. Kind of the disappointing revenue that they're reporting lately.
Yeah, and also it's not a it I think the real interesting thing, and you said at the top that, why do you use American? Because you like to select your seat. You like things like that. It's no longer this binary world where your options are low cost Southwest or really, really, really expensive American United Delta, whatever. Right now you can get some benefits or choose the benefits you want incrementally, and maybe you will pay for some of it. Maybe you're not going to pay $3,000 to fly first class somewhere with, if your options are, that or economy. But there's this huge middle ground that Delta, that United, that all these companies are so, so good at exploiting, even Spirit and Frontier, and so this kind of the pay for what you want, that Southwest has largely just been out of this game. And it is hurting, I mean, it does, it gives them some brand loyalty. Some people love, you're not going to, your bags aren't being charged, but it does make them a lot less, back to the word nimble, than their competitors, and it is hitting their results right now.
I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. The Motley Fool is a company that provides investing insight and stock recommendations for investors of all skill sets and risk levels. You all know how much I love researching new stocks and trying to find the next best investment, so I'm proud to partner with The Motley Fool to bring you 10 stock picks from their popular product, Stock Advisor. Stock Advisor has beaten the market by more than 4 times, so go to fool.com/Frankel to get your 10 stock picks now. The Motley Fool Stock Advisor returns are 650% as of April 16th, 2024, and are measured against the S&P 500 returns of 148% as of April 16th, 2024.